the next topic that we've sequestered this room for is alternate keyboards. Basically, we're talking about keyboards that are not QWERTY-like. Everybody knows what a QWERTY keyboard is. Basically, the QWERTY across the top row is the designation for QWERTY. But what we're talking about are alternate keyboards. According to the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, a alternate keyboard shows split, tilted, concave, and bent keyboards. And they offer no assurances that any of these inventions or any of these modifications are really any better for you than a regular keyboard. And it really only mentions the standard QWERTY layout. So what is an alternate keyboard? Well, this kind of looks like an alternate keyboard, but not really. It is QWERTY, QWERTY. But this is kind of their idea for an alternate keyboard. The keys are bent and twisted, and it gives you a little bit better feel for how your hands can naturally fit without necessarily pronating them and having them close together, which forces stress on that proper palm. So that's what the federal government says an alternate keyboard is. Now, why are we doing QWERTY? Does anybody have an idea what the QWERTY is all about? Sure.
It slows you down for your typewriter.
That's what a lot of people think. It does slow you down, but that wasn't designed to do that. The original design on the QWERTY keyboard was from, like I say, 1869. And the guy that did it was a typesettist. Worked as a typesettist by trade. And so he wanted to put blocks of type. He figured typesetters were probably going to be his target market. Those are the people that are going to want to use, printed type. And so he put the keys basically in the order on where people would put blocks of type. That's where typesetters normally keep them. Now there was a suggestion that he also wanted to put the name of his invention, the typewriter, on the top row. And that's why all of the letters for the word typewriter on the top row. Whether that's true or not, that's a possibility, but it is a coincidence that it is there. And the vowels that are not in typewriter are not on the top row, so they don't have that free throw. But he did want to try to make it so that the mechanicals, hammers, did not get bothered by it. That's why A is underneath Q and W, two very infrequently used keys. And that was kind of the idea behind the QWERTY keyboard. But like I say, it's before the light bulb, telephone, and AC power. So really, we've come a long ways in the last 140 years. So where are the alternates? I did a search on eBay for keyboard. Got 83,883 results. I searched for alternate keyboard. I got 4 results. And I looked at all of those 4, and they were all not really alternate keyboards. So does such a thing really exist? You would think that if there was an alternate keyboard, surely somebody would have either been done with it and said, well, let's just sell the darn thing on eBay, or somebody would be trying to sell them on eBay. The Dvorak is actually, most people think of as an alternate keyboard. Dvorak came up with a reconfiguration of the keyboard in 1930. And his main change was to put the vowels all on the home row of the left hand, and major consonants on the right hand. And if you go into your Windows application today, you can choose to use the Dvorak arrangement instead of the regular keyboard. Of course, you have to move your keys around, or else memorize where all this is, and that would really mess somebody up when they sit down at your keyboard and try to type. It's something that I know people that have done that just to goof on somebody. They go in and change it to Dvorak. His idea was you'd be able to type 70% of more common letters, more common words on the home row, as opposed to only 10% with QWERTY. And it's supposed to be faster and more efficient and everything else. Unfortunately, like I say, he launched in 1930 at the beginning of the Great Depression. There wasn't a whole lot of money for training and retooling and that sort of stuff. So it's kind of lingered. There's been a little bit of a resurgence. There is an active community of Dvorak users. They've got a newsletter and everything else, but still not real popular. Meltron has also made some left-handed and right-handed versions of the keyboard. Sort of not really a QWERTY-esque. This keyboard came out about 4 years ago, the AB key, and as you can see, they've made some keys very large, and they've moved them around. This circle on the top there is actually a pivot point, so you can split the keyboard open, so you can have it, more like that. And it's innovative. Got to give it that. But
how practical is it?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's some real good reasoning behind some of the things on it, but it's kind of a hard choice. About the same time, this company came out and branded themselves as the new standard keyboard, which I thought was a great name. Actually, I met the man and the woman that run the company, and very down home, folksy people, real nice. What they've done is they've kind of color coded it to make it kid friendly. It's alphabetical, so it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N. And then it puts the navigation tools right in the middle, so that you're not necessarily reaching over here all the time. And there's some evidence to suggest that it might be a little bit better way to do some things too. Stenographer actually types on a keyboard that's a little bit different. More or less, we're considering stenographer as a chord keyboard. The stenographer keyboard came out actually a year before QWERTY in 1868, and typically they've got between 20 and 24 keys. They do not type words phonetic, letter by letter. They type phonetically, so they'll type word sounds. And the stenographer typically is the only one that can really decipher what it is that they type, and that's called job security. So they can really crank it out. They use them in courtrooms and that sort of thing because they are so darn fast. This one, I saw a record that said the record was 375 words per minute. I don't see how that's possible. I mean, if the word was in and I had to type IN space, I don't think I could do 375 words. So, I don't know. But that's what they're saying the record is. This is the data hand. How many people saw the movie Contact with Jodie Foster?
Yeah.
Okay, this was featured in that movie. Basically, your hands sit on these little pads, and your fingers fall in the little holes. You've got a button on the bottom. You got a button top, bottom, left, and right. So you can push 5 different ways with your fingers. These little pluses on the top are actually the key codes. They're not actually buttons. So that just tells you where the stuff is, and you can see the thumb go to. It's got different levers and different ways to manipulate. But your hands basically don't have to move. And so that was kind of a cool idea that somebody said, well, I don't want my hands to move, and let's try that. That's the data hand. Frogpad came out in 2003. I saw them launch over at CTIA, and what their idea was, they reduced the keyboard down a little bit further. We're kind of reducing here. They cut it down to only 20 keys. Main keys are, most common used letters are single press, and then you hold a shift key for the next series of letters and functions and that sort of stuff. They made it USB, they made it Bluetooth, they made it roll up. They did a lot of work on this. They had good manufacturing, good marketing, good development. Unfortunately, they have not really been very successful in the market, and it's really kind of staggering. You go to their website now, and they're talking about how their next real hope is to try to get a virtual Frogpad on the iPad. So they're trying to get virtual with it now because they really have not been able to support development of this keyboard. But still kind of a cool idea. It's a single-handed keyboard. Another single-handed keyboard is the Twiddler 2. This is more or less the favorite keyboard for wearable computers. People that strap on a computer and a little eyepiece and walk around and want to be able to type. And at that Steiner in 2003, he had been wearing a keyboard, wearing a wearable computer for 10 years at that point. So it's 17 years probably now. If you look up in the dictionary cyborg, there's usually a picture of Thad. He's got the little eyepiece in front of his eye, and he works with a twiddler in his hand. And he's done some testing on how fast people can type with the twiddler and how fast they can learn and that sort of thing. I personally watched him type 60 words a minute with his typing hand behind his back. So it's kind of impressive. Again, it's a chord keyboard. They do have some word sounds that are also shortcut keys as well. Basically, it's 12 keys for your forefingers, and then 4 keys for your thumb, and a track point on the top. Unfortunately, they were no longer able to source the track point, so Twiddler basically stopped production. I've seen, though, that since then they've come out with the Twiddler 2.1, where they've managed to find somebody else that's doing a track point, so they've kind of done a redesign, and they're continuing. So that's a good thing. Down to 12 keys, the Ecapad is one that is expected to work with one hand. Now, we talk about chord keyboards. How many people know about chord keyboard? Okay. Chord keyboard is basically like a musical chord. You hold more than one key in order to create the note or the keystroke. And so that's what we're down to on these smaller keypads. Is basically chording. Typical method of chord keys is you hold down a number of keys, and when you release them, it generates the keystroke. That's typically the way that chord keyboards work. Now we're down to 10 keys. This is actually my invention. The idea is it's one key for each finger, so you've got a button under your fingertips, and you can wear a pair of gloves and type, or you can put it on your steering wheel. That gets a little bit of tape mail, and actually there are a lot of people that really like it too. I showed it to the head of IP for Florida Highway Patrol, and he liked the idea. He said the problem is that their deputies are told they're not allowed to type while they're driving, and this would be a tool to break policy. So, well, you know, you're restricted to the available technology. This is a tool to set policy. So, but he said that when I've got a wireless version, he'll put it on his test track and try it out. But the idea is just reduce it down to only 10 keys, hold one button and press another in sequence, and you've got 100 combinations. So there's basically a keyboard of 101 keys. So we can really pretty much do everything with just 10. Now I did have to go with 3 keys for the function keys, F1 through 12. So you got to hold three buttons for that. But everything else is just 1 or 2 buttons. Now we're down to this looks like 9, but it's really only 7 keys. The idea is that this is left-handed or right-handed. So your thumb would work any one of those 3 keys, and then your fingers would work these, or the opposite. So your thumb would work those 3, and then your regular fingers would use those 4. And the idea is, now they say, just look at the shape. Look at the shape of the letters, and that's how you put your fingers. I don't really see it.
Yeah.
And I really look. So, but that's another chord keyboard actually for sale. You can still go out and get the site key. Also down to 7 keys is the back and the spiff quarter. Spiff quarter is a handheld version of the bat. Basically, it's 4 buttons for these fingers and then 3 for the thumb. Also, I believe they are still available. You can still go out and buy them, but you will hold down as much as 5 fingers for some input.
Wow.
So now there is a little bit of a difference. When it's a desk-mounted device, they call it a chord keyboard. When it's a handheld device, they call it a keyer. So So the spiff quarter is actually more of a keyer, not a chord keyboard, technically. This one actually belongs to a guy I met named Greg Priest, who has been walking around with a portable computer in the back for many years as well. Douglas Engelbert. Anybody recognize Doug? Yes, we got one. Anybody else? Everybody should know Douglas. 2. Douglas is the man who invented the mouse. This is the man you can thank for being able to play Warcraft and all of your kind of fun. His idea was that when somebody had a mouse in one hand, they would use their other hand on a chord keyboard, so they'd be able to type on one hand and move with the other. And so he demonstrated this all the way back into the early 70s. I messed this one up. This one really should have come after the intended, because this one is actually 9 keys. This is a Brailler. Everybody's familiar with Braille? Braille is basically the little numbers, bumps that are next to the numbers on an elevator. They're little bumps that help disabled people read. And in 1951, I believe they came out with the Perkins Brailler. It was basically a keyboard that let people type and create little bumps on the paper so that blind people could read them. So it's kind of an alternate keyboard, really not used very much outside of the disabled community, the vision disabled community. This is kind of a new one, Geckos. Basically, it's designed as a 2-handed keyboard using your 3 main fingers on both hands, and again, it's chording. So it's a single press for A, B, C, D, and then you hold down this button here, and both of these for G, and then just a single finger for H, I, and J, and then hold that one and those 2. And so it's a little bit of back and forth, but it's a way of being able to generate a set of keys with much fewer keyboards. Now we're down to only 2. This is the key bowl, and really kind of a creative idea. It works on basically like a joystick. There are 8 positions that you can choose, and you just navigate the one bowl towards the letter set that you want, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, and look at the color of the letter that you want, and then move the other hand towards that color. So that's a way that you're able to type without using your fingers at all, just the palms of your hand. So it's actually been a good device for people that have had really crippling carpal tunnel syndrome and are not able to do anything with their fingers anymore. And so that was a solution. Now they took this idea and they brought it onto the video game controller, and they put it onto the little joysticks so that in the middle of a game you could actually type like that too, as opposed to scrolling and hitting the trigger button. So this was another kind of cool way to be able to type. Just kind of a little bit of an afterthought. Here's somebody else that put the keyboard on a game controller. This is called the Alpha Grips. There's about 50 keys strapped around the controller, and so your hands really don't have to move. You can hold onto the controller and type. It's a little bit alien looking, but it's got the trackball in the center there, so you can do your mousing and everything else. So it's kind of a cool little device. What I did was what I call the tech skin, and it's basically a skin wrapped around the Microsoft game controller, and it's just an add-on, and it gives you 2 buttons on top and 8 buttons underneath, and with those buttons you've got the entire keyboard. I figured Microsoft spent a lot of money trying to figure out the ergonomics on that. Why should I reinvent that wheel? So that was kind of my idea for the touchscreen. So what are the applications? What makes one keyboard better than another? It really kind of depends on what you're trying to use it for. Obviously, you cannot use a wearable computer with a full keyboard unless you want to have a like a strap-on neck and type. So kind of the idea is with the on the steering wheel is right now people are using the keyboard, the foam pad keyboard, or they're using a touch screen or one of these little clusters of keys. And if you're driving or if you're walking or doing anything like that, you really need to look at that cluster. I mean, some people can try to type without looking, but I think your mistakes are pretty frequent then. Touchscreens you have to look at. There's no avoiding it. So people are driving, holding the device in one hand, poking at it with the other, looking down and steering with their knee, and God knows where they're going to go. And that's why they're trying to make it illegal. My concept, with 10 buttons on the steering wheel, your fingers are on the buttons, there's nothing to look at, so you don't need to look away. Keep your eyes on the road, keep your hands on the wheel. I think it's a safer way to go. Trying to get the application. Is there a learning curve? Yeah. People ask me how long it takes, and my standard answer is, well, it depends on how old you are. Little kids pick it up like that, but people that are a little bit more immersed with their old keyboard, are a little bit more reluctant. It's suggested that because it's a chord keyboard, chord keyboards work differently in your mind. The standard keyboard, you've developed a muscle memory where your fingers need to go, so you already have that built up in your mind. So if you do practice both ways, you'll be able to be proficient in both of them. How many people use voice for input? Chuck?
A little bit.
A little bit? What do you think of it?
I've learned to be very careful about pronunciation.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, voice has always been the panacea. Everybody thinks that, voice is going to be the thing that's really going to kick us into the future. And they've been talking they've been talking to computers since 2001, The Space Odyssey in 1969, and still we don't have it right.
Actually, since 1995, Windows has had some sort of voice recognition built in or as an add-on, and the APIs still have, even at best of a 98 to 99% accuracy rate, that means you're correcting at least 3 or 4 words every minute.
So, and then, that doesn't even account the contextual mistakes
right.
that throws in there. And, try to say intended.
But it's a virtual keyboards that are going right now.
Yeah.
I'm looking at swipe and different things,
Yeah, swipe I didn't actually mention. Swipe is really kind of a cool technology. Again, it's a virtual keyboard, so it's not something that you can do without having to look down. So we're really kind of looking at heads-up types of keyboards. Actually, I just did a proposal for the Air Force is looking for gloves that type. So hopefully that's something that they're going to look at. So what's next? We try to think of ourselves as being a real connected society. We're online, we're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, and we're always checking our email. And, Gavin's doing it right now. And so we're really, always online. But this is kind of my idea for what we're going to see as far as our children. I think that in the future we're going to see our kids with a head-mounted webcam, live streaming. So they're going to have this thing mounted on their head. They're going to go to their parties. They're going to go to concerts. They're going to go out and see their friends and everything. And all of their buddies are going to have, are going to be able to see and stay connected with them at home, or they go to the party with them. They see everything they do, and it's just going to be extremely messy. And it'll be live streaming, so there'll be nothing to stop it. And then there'll be a little bit of a text screen, and they can flip the camera down so that you can see their face and they can talk to you. But in that avenue, I still think that they're going to need some sort of keyboard. It's going to be so small that they're going to need an alternate keyboard. That's my take on it. So I don't know. It's kind of a scary future, but I'm calling it. That's it. Questions?